So there I was, playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the 4th time in 3 months because I have a lot of things wrong with me. The usual song and dance routine of the final 40 minutes or so came and went, Dutch's plan fell into more pieces than my heart did that one instance 5 years ago, and something about this time just felt different. My brain does funny things when sad events happen, so like any good, responsible, and sensible human being would do, I went to gamble a little to try and hit the big time. Poker was the only option available, and for a while I was doing great. Won some hands, folded some others, usual gambling. The downward spiral continued, however, as I kept losing, and losing is a catastrophic event that treads on borderline dangerous territory. As I lost what would have been a 9 high straight to an ace high club flush, something in the prefrontal cortex just snapped. I lost my brother, my father left me for dead, my wife left with my son, and now all my money was gambled away for nothing. It wasn't too long before the entire population of the saloon I was in was going to fill a graveyard in about 2 weeks. The scary part is that I sort of found it amusing. Who would have guessed the video game protagonist John Marston had a bloodlust that puts Hellraiser's Pinhead to shame? Lawmen traveled far and wide to be the war hero that brought down the worst savage since myself in my Red Dead 2 Cattleman Revolver Only challenge, and it was quite cute thinking they had a chance. One by one, each building in Valentine was cleared until all that was left was a bunch of X's littered everywhere across the minimap. Although since a lot of NPCs ran away to grab their guns, I patiently waited until they came back, where I forcibly shoved a revolver cartridge into their skull for safekeeping. Valentine was done and dealt with, but there were still plenty more towns to overthrow in my quest to finally find some peace. Before we embark on that endeavor, we have to make a pit stop to a certain house in the woods that houses 2 of the nastiest motherfuckers in the entire game.
You ain't.
Now that that's done and dealt with, I figured my next target would be the place where my situation took almost as sharp of a decline as Bitcoin did in the year 2022. In case it wasn't clear already, every town possible I can reach will become extinct to truly give them that old ghost town feel. On the way to Blackwater, I found a train just casually rolling along, and trains generally house a lot of occupants going places. So car by car I went, but everyone seemed to have escaped rather fast. Not that that's any issue, I'll catch up to them one way or another. So to get the serotonin levels in my brain to happy levels, I took the train for a joyride. I enjoyed the scenery and the cops tailing me, but it got old rather quickly, so I left it rolling along. I made sure to direct it to that one bridge. When I mean every NPC dies, I truly mean every NPC I come across. It's in the interest of fairness after all. I don't want to leave anyone behind in this little game I'm playing. By the time I reached Blackwater, my honor had long been in the dumpster somewhere. I don't even have words to describe what I'm witnessing, and nobody would believe me without some proof, so here's my proof. Rather than go guns blazing like I normally would in a town full of innocents, I kicked off the Blackwater event by sheathing my hatchet into the limbs and ligaments of civilians everywhere. Sometimes it found itself in the neck, one dude died by stepping on it too hard, and somewhere along the way I lost it in one of the bodies, so to quell my rage, I no-clipped this guy's face into that wall and did rather speakable things to his Adam's apple. It's weird, people react to my calculated mass murder as if I were naked and eating a live animal's entrails with my bare hands while screaming the lyrics to the Klondike Bar ice cream commercial. Like, what the f, yo, I ain't hurting nobody. If anything, I'm washing away all the pain that is life and embracing it for myself. Aren't I a good person? I continued heading west to liberate the entirety of New Austin, where a guy in Armadillo handed me a pamphlet. I'm pretty sure this eventually leads to a multi-level marketing scheme, so I blasted his brains out. Though the town itself was quite barren of breathing corpses, I'm fairly certain I spent more minutes here than the actual population count. Considering the fact that this place is smack dab in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere, it doesn't surprise me one bit the lack of law anywhere. The train folk from earlier were so desperate to get away from me that they thought riding into this place would guarantee their safety. It was impossible for them to figure out that my solid 68 IQ mind that sits right behind my big ass forehead conducted the non-Dutch Vanderland plan well before they even knew I existed, and their horses officially abandoned them. It almost makes me sad that my bounty number didn't go up, though that's through no fault of my own, but rather the lazy government fools loafing about collecting precious taxpayer money. It was a problem well before 1907, and it is still a problem in the current year. Whatever year you're watching this, I guarantee that statement still applies. Tumbleweed is a town full of inspiration. After building his fancy saloon, the mayor looked out to the horizon, saw a piece of dead foliage running along, and here we are today. I attempted to kick off the heist by getting a cheeky throwing knife kill on the owner of the general store, but the powers that be denied me my sweet victory, and I swear I have never seen a door magically close so fast in my entire life. Tumbleweed was a bit more impressive than the last town I painted red, as their people actually fought back, and actually had a population that went into the double digits. The long scope sniper rifle was my first option because I apparently cannot escape the year 2009, followed up by the double barrel shotgun because revolvers get quite boring after a little bit. I will admit that Blackwater and even Valentine didn't even hold a candle to Tumbleweed. It's a lot less urban, which granted me many more options to traverse terrain, hide on rooftops, etc. The tomahawks were also the cherry on top. I visited one half of the famous forts, and I'ma keep it $1.50 with you. This place disappointed me. While circling Fort Mercer looking for a way to sneak in, which was useless in the end as there's only one damn door, I got caught. Go figure. So I stormed the base thinking I'll finally have a challenge. It's an army base, for crying out loud. It was like the opposing team was comprised of 4-year-olds who were missing their thumbs. Timestamps indicated that I cleared the entire base out in under 3 minutes. I feel it's appropriate to just move on. I made a quick pit stop to this mining area because they had killed me earlier, and no one else gets away with murder on my watch. Some red boxes were lying around, so of course I shot them because I like blowing shit up. Strawberry is certainly a name for a town. Who names an establishment for civilization off their favorite fruit? It's like naming a neighborhood guava, or grapefruit, or God forbid, pineapple. I don't trust people who put pineapple on pizza either, but that's a discussion for another day. I decided to take a more stealthy approach here and give my tinnitus a bit of a break. I knew it wouldn't last forever, but I had to find out just how much death I could leave in my wake without alerting anyone. Turns out it was actually quite a bit, and there was even a little river flowing through the town to send the bodies to the great big saloon in the sky. Of course, because I can't help myself, the entire town went into complete calamity before long, and it honestly made me sad. My fun game was over, but at least I maxed out my bounty for West Elizabeth, so I take my W's where I can get them. Now we're on to the second half of the forts, and I'm so glad this one at least left me clenching. As far as I was aware, there was no open entrance to the base, so I was stuck camping behind walls and rocks and picking the riflemen off one by one. I later learned they were little bitches though, and called the cops to apprehend a single man who's clearly superior. He's not quite Arthur Morgan status, but he's very solid nonetheless. Cops were swarming me after about 10 minutes of constant fighting. By the skin of my teeth, I got out of there, leaving the base now ripe to loot once the heat dies down. Emerald Ranch was just a sad place of despair and brutality, and this instance right here sums up my feelings towards it. Softlock looking menacingly over a helpless chimpanzee. I have no desire to talk about this place further. Instead, we go to LeGras. I dunked on Armadillo having a small population, but I honestly think LeGras actually has less. The only notable thing that happened here was that I took easily my biggest L in 2022. Bar none, that was embarrassing. Van Horn just might have been the most competitive place I've run through so far at this quest. The residents in this town do not give a flying about you. If anyone so much had a weapon ranging from a thumbtack to a gun, given the opportunity, they'd chop you up into little bite-sized pieces, cook you for their horse's dinner, and use your leg bones as chopsticks. Not a single government cop dude thingy came running from anywhere, and that made it all the more comedic that the infinite resources of the cops couldn't be bothered to help these guys out. Knowing them, it just ended up in a shootout, and honestly, I'd pay good money to watch that happen. Annisburg might as well have thrown me into animal feces, force-fed it down my throat, and put a gun barrel to my head, threatening to pull the trigger if I so much as looked away towards the people here. It's a combination of terrible terrain, virtually nowhere good to hide, and seemingly endless supply of not even lawmen, although they're there too, just dudes with guns barreling towards me. I tried for 2 hours. 2 hours attempting to clear this town. It was just one disaster after another. By this point, I had run out of health items as well, so that made things peachy. The town is compact, dense, with doors, alleyways, and lines of sight everywhere. I really did give it an honest effort, but this one was just too much for me, so I submitted and moved on.
I gave you all I had.
I'm gonna keep it real, I almost forgot to clear roads. I was practically in St. Denis before I remembered this town existed, so that's kind of funny. This little spot I found after I butchered the gun store owner amassed quite the body count at the door. I made the grave mistake of walking out though, and it was here I found out invisible walls exist, or I just didn't have the energy to walk over the 3 high body count. Nevertheless, the saloon provided an excellent alternative to my campsite in the gun store. By this point, I was over the never-ending supply of police storming my way hoping to turn in the bounty on my head. You'd think after the first 1,000 or so dead with nothing to show for it that they'd get the bright idea and back off, but no, these guys are just as bad as Colm O'Driscoll, hiring any gun off the street with the false promise of great riches and rewards if they just do what they're told. Quite sad. St. Denis, and before I continue forward, for all the people in the comments section currently flying their fingers across the keyboard to correct me and say, "It's Saint Denis!" Screw you all, I am an American. If they want me to say Saint Denis, then they should have spelled it as Saint Denis. It's like adding the letter U to the word color, or using the metric system. Y'all are bonkers for that one, and are clearly in the wrong. Regardless, I looked up the population estimate on St. Denis, and people are saying based on population density along with the size of the town, it's probably give or take about 1,000. So I grabbed all my guns and shoved pieces of metal flying at super high speeds into every cranium I could find. It certainly was not easy. I had the ammunition for it, that wasn't the issue, but rather I was practically playing team deathmatch, but their side was the only side to have more than one person on it, and the respawn button was running wild. All this city showed me was that nobody could defend themselves. It was surprisingly easy to defend myself from any oncoming attackers, and playing this way honestly sucks. How I'm ever supposed to pay off a max bounty in 3 different states is beyond my way of thinking, and if there's one thing I learned throughout it all, it's that the government doesn't care how many men they send. I am the one feeding their pay stubs. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my bloodlust. If you did, consider leaving this video a like, or if you didn't, leave it a dislike. And if you haven't already, and you like what you see on the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Helps me out a ton. Shout out to all my Patreon supporters for making videos like this one possible. Have a good one. Peace out.